Hello there YouTube, Devin here again. I literally just woke up, can't tell from my excessive amounts of bedhead, but I did wake up kind of late and I wanted to make sure that this video can get up at a reasonable time because unfortunately it takes like 5 hours to upload and encode and all that other cool jazz. But today we're doing a redo video again on probably one of the rarer steel helmets you could possibly find, and one that's very well sought after by collectors. That would be on the Russian Sohlberg helmet. Now, the Sohlberg helmet has a complicated, kind of weird history to it because it was used for a very, very short amount of time. There wasn't a whole lot of them made. It's based off French design, and they actually kind of, to a degree, were used against each other in both the Russian Civil War and World War II by the Finns, actually. So the story behind the Sohlberg helmet is during World War I, Russia did not have the capability to produce helmets themselves. So they got helmets through the French. The French would send them M15 Adrians. And now they were basically the same exact shape as this. They took the same liner, the same chin strap and everything. But the only difference with the French one, because I don't actually own an M15 Adrian anymore, is the comb was a big long piece rather than just this little button style, and the bill and the rear neck guard here were separate pieces from the dome. So it was made in 4 parts. And they could not get them very easily to Russia because obviously of all of the submarines and stuff like that. And taking them kind of around the entire world, and like everything was still risky because of the submarines in the Atlantic, and it would just take way too long and it wasn't practical. And so in late 1916 the Russians come up with this design, and it starts being produced very, very late 1916, and hardly any of them were made in 1916, but the vast majority of them you're going to find were made in 1917 up until basically the day of the revolution. Then production kind of stopped, so they were not made for very long, not even quite a year. So just under a year these were produced, and the Russians basically copied and simplified the Adrian style. They made the entire shell of the helmet made out of a single piece of steel, has a raw edge on it, which means these can get kind of sharp if you do nick the edge or something like that. And then they simplified the comb. The comb is once again just a single little piece of pressed steel that covers up a vent that is just like the M15 Adrian here on the inside of the helmet. They would have all been painted this kind of light olive green. This is the original paint that's left over from over 100 years ago. This is a helmet that I restored. The chin strap is not original and the liner is not original, but I made the liner and chin strap off of pictures of the original Imperial Russian liner and chin strap, which were exact copies of the Adrian. And later these would get different liners. They would get sock type liners with a drawstring at the top, just like the SSH-36 would have had. And the Finns would also do some different things to the ones that they kept after their revolution and they broke away. So these were hardly used by Russian troops in World War I. The very last days of World War I you would see them. The very hard to find Imperial Russian ones like this are very expensive and incredibly hard to find. Which is why I didn't want to repaint this one. I did put a new liner in it and a chin strap in it, but those are removable, and then I just clear coated this to protect the paint that's left on it. So because I did kind of restore it, but I also didn't do anything that was permanent to the helmet. So it is this is how they would have looked. It would have all been this green color for the Imperial Russians. So it's really first major use kind of in the end of World War I, and then against each other in the Russian Civil War between the communists and the Red and the White armies, basically. This would be more prevalent along the White Army soldiers for the most part, at least very early on, and then later you would see as more soldiers kind of turn to the the Red Army side, they would be these would be more prevalent. They were used into World War II by the Russian military. You see them very quickly after the SSH-36 comes out in 1936. Very quickly replaced with that, and then later supplemented off by the SSH-40. But you could see them with rear line troops and air guard units and other types of stuff like that into the war a pretty good amount. But by the end of the war, they would have been entirely phased out by SSH-40s as their production ramped up to such a degree. And the Russians were really good at cranking those out really, really fast. So, but now I will show you, so first of all, I'll show you what the liner looks like. It's the exact kind of Adrian style liner, early Adrian pattern liner, and then the chin strap is just a brass buckled strap that's riveted around these little tiny chin strap bales. So, and the chin strap bales are held in place with these two rivets right here, and then these two rivets hold a little set of flexible mild steel prongs that you just stab through the liner and then bend over to hold the liner in place. It was very easy to do, and that's about it. So that's the liner that I made to fit into this helmet. It works quite well. I'll show you what it looks like here. It sits very perfect on my head. As you can see, these are actually off center. They were trying to crank them out as fast. It's not meant to look good, it's meant to protect you. And it actually offered more protection than the Adrian did because it was more rigid, because it was a one-piece shell design minus the comb, because the comb just covers the vent hole, which doesn't really offer a ton of protection. But the one-piece design actually improved the ballistic protection of the Sohlberg over the Adrian, because it made it a little bit stronger. It gave a little bit more strength to the shell. But this is what it looks like straight on. This is what it looks like from the side. This is what it looks like from the rear. Now, the Adrian helmet from the rear has a cool thing, because if you look up, it tends to ride along your neck, protecting it, but it doesn't quite bite in. So that's a neat feature of the Adrian style helmet, where it has this rear bill that protects your neck, but it doesn't quite interfere with the soldier's ability to go prone and use their weapon. But it is still a very high sitting design. It doesn't protect your ears or the back of your neck from stuff coming in from the side, kind of like the German Stahlhelm did, but it did do its job for World War I, which was mostly, standing in a defensive position, keeping dirt and rain and debris and other stuff from falling on you, and of course bumping your head, as most helmet impacts are vastly majority bumping your head. Not intended to stop bullets. As you can see, it is an incredibly thin piece of steel. So, but hopefully, now I'm gonna go and show you. Oh, and they also did have the little corrugated bits, just like the French ones did. So now I'm going to show you what a Finnish one looks like, and we'll talk a little bit more about the history here in that video. So hopefully I will see you over there. Alrighty, so now we're back with the Finnish Soulberg helmet, and they all are technically Finnish, as they were made in factories outside of Helsinki, which is the capital of Finland. And at the time when this helmet came out, Finland was part of the Russian Empire, and part of Imperial Russia. It was a sort of autonomous region, though, and the Sohlberg and Holmberg factories outside of Helsinki, they're named after the people who owned the factories. So Sohlberg made most of them, Holmberg made a few of them, a good enough amount to make it into the records and survive, obviously, but the vast majority were made by Sohlberg. And so the factory was named Sohlberg after the people who owned it, so the family who owned it, or the guy who owned it, I'm not sure who it was, but it was named after the Sohlberg family, and that factory was located outside of Helsinki. Same thing with Holmberg, that was located outside of Helsinki. So obviously when the Russian Revolution happened, and Finland broke away to become independent, they got stuck with a lot of these helmets, which was probably actually a good thing. Because Finland didn't have any helmets. The vast majority of countries didn't have any helmets after World War I. Finland was one of the few who actually had helmets after World War I. This is what their helmet looks like. It would get this shiny black enameled paint, because basically the vast majority of Sohlbergs didn't make it to the front lines, didn't even make it all the way through production. So a lot of the Finnish ones were left in the white. They didn't even receive paint yet in the factory. So it's a very rare to find one that was green and overpainted black, because the vast majority of them would have been just bare steel when the Finns finally got them after the revolution. They're like, we're going to use these now for our kind of revolution. And most of theirs would, after that, be painted with this black enamel paint. This chin strap is not original, by the way. It would have had the same chin strap as the Russian helmet, and later the leather would change a few times and the buckle would change from brass to steel. It's not uncommon to find them with the World War I chin strap, and it's not uncommon to find them with the later chin strap. But so don't pay attention to the chin strap here. But this helmet is once again in my size. They are all in my size. This one's liner is a little bit different because the Finns didn't have really the means or want to take the time to do the Russian liner. So they have this interesting 3-tongue liner that is made out of reindeer leather. And it works. It's a thin leather, but it's quite strong. It's very comfortable. Oftentimes you want their helmets would have been because the liner's a little lower profile. You can see there's a lot of play in this, but that's because it was oftentimes designed to be worn with winter clothing underneath it, which is something they would have thought of, which I did with the Finnish one, and I did not do with the Russian one, because the Russians actually did not size theirs to have winter clothing underneath it. Their very first helmet that did that actually was the SSH 40. So you might not be able to see it in there, but you sort of can. There's a hole right here, and that's covered by this little air rivet. Now that has a cool effect and was kind of a carryover from the Adrian in the fact that if a blast goes off underneath you, it allows the concussion to escape through the top of the helmet rather than being forced into your skull, which could cause pretty severe trauma, actually, to your brain. And they didn't know that at the time, but it's something in hindsight that they kind of figured out that the Adrian does compared to a lot of other designs, because the British helmet, the Brodie, didn't have that. And the Germans had little air lugs on theirs, but theirs were not quite in the right spot, so it would release some of the pressure, but not all of it. But something cool, but it was basically just meant to be an air vent. It was to help be comfortable for the soldier, because when the sun's beating down on this, or when you're working really, really hard, and this is a lot of weight. At this time, this is a lot of weight compared to a field cap. These are light nowadays compared to helmets, but at the time, this was a pretty heavy piece of kit. But soldiers also carried a ton less than they do nowadays. But this was for the comfort of the soldier. It was to allow moisture and heat to leave the helmet. Heat naturally rises, so the best place to put the air vent would be right on the top of the helmet. So they just kept doing that, and it ends up with this cool, unique, little tiny domed design. And worked out pretty well. The Finns would use these into World War II. You can even see some German soldiers or SS soldiers, because they had to procure their stuff independently from the army. So there is some pictures of some SS soldiers floating around wearing this exact helmet, like this exact Finnish style of Sohlberg helmet. And so it chugged along through World War II. The Finns didn't really throw anything away, but after the end of World War II, a lot of them would have been scrapped, obviously. So once again, the Finnish ones are also quite rare. There's still some of the Finnish ones around. You can still find some of the Russian ones here and there. They are getting quite expensive now, though, just so you know. But I ended up giving one of these to Mike B as well. So if you want to learn more about it and see some other angles and stuff of it, feel free to check out his video. But I figured now we can stop rolling the camera. We can put these two right next to each other, side by side, and compare how they look on the inside here in the next portion of the video. Alrighty, so as you can see here, we now have both the Sohlbergs here on the floor with the liners facing up, so you can kind of see the differences here in the liners and the lining system, and I'll show you a few different details that are kind of hard to see, and hopefully they show up on camera. But you can see the chin straps and everything like that are located in you know, relatively the same spot. They did kind of move around the shell a little bit. So this one is actually correct. The chin strap bales are supposed to be kind of a little bit further forward to kind of offset the length of the bill. This Russian one here, this Finnish one here, as you can see, the chin strap bales are actually further back because they installed the liner backwards. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but the chin strap bales are supposed to be a little bit further forward. So, but because it's actually very hard to have the Adrian kind of line up and stuff like that and everything, and it's very you wouldn't want, I assume they installed it backwards and they didn't want you to wear it the other way because there's a seam right here in the back that would have been very, very uncomfortable to wear if you wore it the other way around. So, or maybe this is just one that got assembled with the chin strap rivets a little further back. So, because these ones are actually uneven. This side, so this would be the left side of the helmet, it's actually further back than the right side. These appear to be quite even, but they're much further back than on this one. So I don't know if that was just the Russians and the Finns trying to crank them out as quick as possible, but none of these would have been made after 1917. So just so you're aware, the Finns would not continue to make these and all that other good stuff. So hopefully here we can kind of show you here, we get the light. So there's the little hole that you can see down there. And now that you can tell, you can see the green paint. This is actually one of the ones that would have been in Russia and then came back because oftentimes they would ship these with the paint still wet on them, actually, because the Russians needed them that badly. So this is one that either was just about to leave the factory when the revolution happened, or one that somehow came back because it has the green paint on the inside of the comb, which is the one place that's kind of hard to reach with this black paint. So also it hasn't quite fully like flaked off, but there is some little bits of green that you can see underneath this black enamel paint, meaning it once had the paint just like this. So also on this, on the Finnish helmet, so rather than having the, I don't know if we could see it here on the side of this little helmet, so you could see the little prongs sticking through, and if I can show you here without undoing the whole liner, hopefully. Come on now. If I can get in there to take a look at it, even. Oh yeah, the prongs are just tiny and hard to see, and near the bottom of the helmet of the liner here. So I probably won't be able to show you the little prongs that stick through, but you can see them sticking through here on the side, and then you would just bend them over to hold the liner in place through those little corrugated pieces of aluminum. And that aluminum also helped absorb shock and everything like that. Later on, though, you would see the aluminum corrugated things go away just to speed up production. So, but like the Finns actually changed that. Theirs do not have the neat little, so if you could see it in there, those little things, those are just hard rivets. They just straight up riveted the liner to the shell. So they got rid of the little bend over prongs. So this liner is not removable, whereas this one, if something happens to it, you can just unbend the prongs and the whole thing will drop right out. It'll just, you just unskewer it off the little prongs and pull the liner out. This thing is hard riveted in place on the Finnish example, and that is kind of a little thing that they did different. I don't know why they chose to do that, but other than obviously being made with a big 3-tongue reindeer leather liner, and this one being made out of cow. So they used what they had. The Finns had more access to reindeer than cows, obviously. They did that, but I don't know why they hard riveted their chin strap in place. But that's kind of the two things with the Sohlberg here, the two separate variations that you can find still. And hopefully you learn something from this, and it's a pretty neat, cool helmet that's not super well known. So we'll go back to the other camera angle now and wrap up the video here. Alrighty, so I hope you all learned something cool about the Sohlberg helmet today. It might be a helmet you didn't really know existed, but it has some pretty neat history behind it, and was really the first helmet to be used in Eastern Europe. So it's also the basically fourth helmet design to come out of the Adrian. There's a lot of countries that did changes and used different stuff to the Adrian. It's actually very similar to the Italian design in World War I. The Italians made both traditional M15 Adrians that were the 4-piece design, and they also made 2-piece designs just like this, going as far back as kind of mid-1916, so a couple months before the Sohlberg would come out. But the Sohlberg's the only one that has the unique kind of button-style top cap on it, so the vent guard. But it's a neat helmet design. It's really Russia's first helmet. It's also Finland's first helmet, and they all came from the same place. So it's just a neat kind of mashup, a lineup of history that I really, really like. And they're also quite incredibly rare. So I'm really glad that I have the amount that I do, which is quite a few of them actually, in various states of disrepair, because I got really lucky. So hopefully you like this video. You subscribe if you like this sort of thing. If you think I'm worth a contribution, I will leave a link to my PayPal in the description of the video. It goes a long way. Becoming a lifetime contribution of even as little as $1. So $1 a month basically would be like the subscription service. You get access to the Discord, which we have a very small community on the Discord, but it's very interactive and there's a lot of pretty cool people on there. So a lot of neat stuff to see for sure. If that's something that interests you, it's a little bit of incentive to help you contribute to the channel and talk to some of the other of my more loyal followers and subscribers, as well as me. And if you have anything to show me or any questions to ask, that's the best way to get a hold of me. Like, if you're like, what is this helmet? Is this real? Is this a good deal type of stuff? The best way to reach me would be the Discord. So that's the way to do it. So hopefully you like this video and you subscribed if you like this sort of thing. I very much appreciate all of that. If you like, subscribe, leave a comment, click the bell and all that stuff. It really helps me in the algorithms, which is going to help the ad revenue and help the video quality go up, which is going to help make me a little bit more relevant in the YouTube channel spectrum. It's going to allow my videos to be a little bit more out there. It's going to help the algorithms quite a lot. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see all of you here in the next one.